Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome to episode 228, celebrating over 5.5 years on the air. Here's to another exciting Saturday night. Such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for tuning in and engaging with me on social media thereafter. It truly makes it all worthwhile. I do interact and engage with all of you. Please continue to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on our YouTube channel Sundays at 2 p.m. via digital streaming. And you can also check us out directly on your home TV platform, directly on our channel. It's free programming to you, no apps to download at mox.yourhometv.com. In the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands and Primal Life Organics, we're featuring Dr. Jen Fraboni. She's an internationally renowned physical therapist and founder of the Jen.Health platform and app, and she's also the co-host of the Ultimate Body podcast. We're chatting tension, breath, and pain. With nearly 70% of adults experiencing jaw clenching or grinding unconsciously, we're going to uncover what your jaw might be telling you about the rest of your body, and we're diving into the real connection between jaw tension, dysfunctional breathing patterns, and systemic physical breakdown. In the Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift in our Expert on the Microphone series, today we're joined by Dr. Grant Stevens. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon and founder and medical director of Marina Plastic Surgery and Marina Med Spa. He's also the founder of SunValleyAesthetics.com. He's going to join me today to chat all about the rising male interest in aesthetic procedures and trending treatments. In the We Play It Forward segment, the series that uplifts bold solutions and breakthroughs in the fight against Alzheimer's, brought to you by the We Play It Forward Foundation. Today, we're spotlighting a story that's making international headlines. Can FDA-approved cancer drugs actually reverse Alzheimer's? Here to break it all down is Dr. Nathan Bryan, founder and CEO of Bryan Therapeutics. We're chatting nitric oxide meets repurposed cancer drugs. Are we finally reversing Alzheimer's? In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, joining us is Tilly Lockie, a Bionic trailblazer, a motivational speaker, and a creative technologist. She's a fierce voice for inclusion. She's been featured on global platforms, BBC to Wired, and continues to use her platform to empower others, especially in the next generation of disabled youth. I'm chatting with this bionic beauty all about her journey from amputation to innovation and the tech that's changing disability forever. In our health tip of the week brought to you by Suspera, today we're chatting about the connection between heat and hyperpigmentation. Stay tuned for Dr. Nathan Bryan coming up next, chatting about the latest headline trending claiming the cure for Alzheimer's has been discovered. You definitely want to stay tuned. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
In business and in life, there's always an upside. Finding it is often the challenge. Having a mindset that looks for it and embraces problems as opportunities is the key to thriving. Finding the Upside with Maria de Lorenzo Reyes explores the transformative power of optimism, featuring visionary business owners, influential leaders, and inspiring everyday people. Tune in and see how they navigate changing conditions with optimism and innovation. Watch the special series One Tough Chick, highlighting resilient and powerful women, streaming on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the We Play It Forward series, the one that uplifts bold solutions and breakthroughs in the fight against Alzheimer's, brought to you by the We Play It Forward Foundation, where community, passion, and research collide to move us one step closer to a cure. Scientists at UCSF and the Gladstone Institutes have discovered that two already FDA-approved cancer drugs, letrozole and irinotecan, can actually reverse Alzheimer's disease in mice, including restoring lost memory. Yes, you heard that right. Restored memory, not just slowed decline. Now, this is a powerful departure from what we've come to expect in a disease where 99% of drug trials have failed and current treatments only delay the inevitable. But joining us today is someone who has dedicated over 25 years to one of the most overlooked yet critical molecular pathways in Alzheimer's disease, nitric oxide. Dr. Nathan Bryan earned his PhD from LSU Health Shreveport and conducted his postdoctoral fellowship at Boston University's Whitaker Cardiovascular Institute before joining faculty at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston under Nobel laureate Farid Murad. Now he's the founder and CEO of Bryan Therapeutics, which is a clinical stage biotech company advancing nitric oxide-based therapies in heart disease, chronic wounds, and now Alzheimer's. His work has shaped the molecular framework through which we understand vascular dementia and neurodegeneration. Today, we're going to be chatting how nitric oxide meets repurposed cancer drugs, and are we finally reversing Alzheimer's? Let's break down the science, the hope, and the urgency. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Zen, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So excited. So let's start with the news that has everyone buzzing. This UCSF Gladstone study looked at nearly 1,300 FDA-approved drugs and found a surprising duo, the letrozole and irinotecan, that didn't just slow Alzheimer's progression in mice, but actually reversed it. So I had to read that twice. Even memory was restored. We don't often hear the words reversal and Alzheimer's together, and yet here we are. So from your scientific perspective, how significant is this breakthrough, and what does it tell us about the future of Alzheimer's therapy?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, we have to put it in the proper perspective. And this study was done in mice that are genetically engineered to develop symptoms of Alzheimer's. And so, again, these are old repurposed drugs that are targeted toward anti-cancer. So these are what we call aromatase inhibitors and type isomerase inhibitors, DNA isomerase inhibitors. So I don't think this is a big step forward. Because, again, these are in mice, and honestly, we've cured every human disease in mice that we know of. The problem is the translation of that science into real human medicine and clinical trials. But because Alzheimer's is not caused from an overexpression of aromatase enzyme or some type of cellular replication, I don't believe these drugs are going to have any clinical utility at reversing Alzheimer's. Mice are not humans. I mean, and again, we have to understand the totality of the disease and the environmental factors, the genetic predispositions, the vascular metabolic aspects of an individual that may be predisposing them to rapid onset of Alzheimer's. And once we understand that, then and only then can we develop rational therapies that are not only safe but effective and address the root cause.
Wow, that's a bold take on breakthrough headliners, and I love the transparency, and I like that you tied it back to science. So where do you see nitric oxide fitting into this conversation? I mean, could it act synergistically with repurposed drugs then to enhance their impact or even potentially serve as its own neurovascular therapy?
We've tried to do is understand the root cause. Today we understand that Alzheimer's and dementia is a vascular disease, and it's a metabolic disease. So whether we look at this through cerebral blood flow through SPECT scans, or we look at the what's been called diabetes type 3, it's insulin resistance in the brain. It's a lack of the ability for the cells to bring in glucose. And nitric oxide dilates the blood vessels, perfuses the brains, improves glucose uptake. When you deliver oxygen and nutrients to the cells and you maintain the normal function, you don't get misfolding of proteins, you don't get the amyloid plaque, and you don't get the tau tangles. So nitric oxide addresses root cause of dementia and Alzheimer's.
When would one start implementing nitric oxide into their supplement?
Well, I think it's important for everybody to, I've got young kids that are high school athletes and middle school athletes that utilize our consumer products of nitric oxide. But I think, there's only two people in the world who need nitric oxide, and that's the people who are healthy and don't want to get sick. And there's the people who are sick and want to get healthy.
I love that.
Because we know that it's controlling every aspect of vascular biology and metabolic disease and inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction that we see in
Okay,
all
you sold me.
disease.
I'm going to your website. Now, one fascinating aspect of this study, which you could debunk, was the method. So researchers used big data, gene expression maps, AI patterning, and real-world patient data to find these two drugs. They even noticed that patients who had taken letrozole or irinotecan for cancer had lower rates of Alzheimer's later in life. So what do you think about that? What do you think this data-driven repurposing first model is? How do you think it's how we'll crack neurodegeneration, or how might nitric oxide research benefit from the same AI-enhanced discovery approach, if not?
Well, I think AI is extremely important because it can crunch so much data. But again, genes respond to the environment. And unless you're born with an inborn error metabolism, a genetic defect, then, Alzheimer's isn't caused by some genetic disorder. So when we look at the associations of certain genes or proteins and then looking at drugs that may affect that, again, we're not addressing root cause. And the other thing we have to consider are the side effects of these drugs. I mean, these are really toxic drugs with a laundry list of side effects. So for me, being in basic science for 25 years now in the clinical translation of that science, it's always risk-benefit. What clinical benefit does it provide, and at what risk? And if there's little benefit and it's all risk, then that's an easy quotient. It's not a good drug target, and it's not a good drug. If there's little risk and enormous benefit, which is how we're seeing our nitric oxide translate into clinical medicine, then it's a no-brainer. But I think there's enormous data out there. There's a lot of misinformation. What we try to do is take the information and implement that into real knowledge based on science so that we understand mechanisms of the onset and progression of disease to where we can develop rational therapies to not only slow the progression, but to reverse, regress, and even prevent the disease.
And according to Alzheimer's Disease International, over 55 million people worldwide are living with dementia, and someone is diagnosed every 3 seconds. I mean, the numbers are staggering. And the costs, financial and emotional, are staggering, right? And despite enormous R&D investment, the 99.6% failure rate of Alzheimer's drug trials remains a cautionary tale. Now, with your deep experience in these clinical trials and drug development, what are the biggest obstacles between this kind of mouse model breakthrough and actual FDA-approved treatment for humans?
Well, it's time and money. Just like anything else. On average, it takes about 10 years or 8 to 10 years and about $800 million to get a drug to market. And that's going from kind of understanding or discovery of basic mechanism into drug therapy, clinical trials, and FDA approval. So cost is the major hurdle in the development of getting this in there. But going back to your issue of all major drugs toward Alzheimer's have failed, it's because all drug targets or drug therapies are targeted towards the amyloid plaque and the tau tangles. Those are the consequence of the disease. They're not causing the disease. So to me, it's very simple. These drugs in all modalities and all treatment and therapeutic strategies targeted toward the amyloid plaque and the tau protein won't work because they can't work because it's not causing the disease. It's a consequence of disease. And 9 out of 10 Americans are metabolically unfit. Most people have poor vascular function. Cardiovascular disease remains the number one killer of men and women worldwide. And when you combine the vascular dysfunction with the metabolic dysfunction, there's your roadmap for Alzheimer's. So if we can address the vascular aspects of dementia and Alzheimer's and improve insulin sensitivity, glucose uptake, and correct the metabolic phenotypes and vascular phenotypes of Alzheimer's, you completely arrest the disease.
So we often talk about Alzheimer's as a disease of the mind, but after hearing you speak, it's just as much a disease of the blood vessels. So vascular dementia, oxidative stress, endothelial dysfunction, it's all connected is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
And nitric oxide sits at the intersection of many of these pathways. So I'm starting to learn a lot from this interview. So in your view, could targeting vascular health, obviously you're going to tell me yes, but simply through nitric oxide modulation help slow or prevent neurodegeneration before it even starts? Is this in fact accurate? And should this be part of a public health messaging at this point?
No, absolutely. Look, and we know this from, if you look at long-term epidemiological studies, people with diabetes have faster onset of Alzheimer's, and that predisposes them. And so when we look at the vascular and the metabolic aspects of Alzheimer's, because you got to look at the progression of disease. We first call it mild cognitive impairment, and then we call it vascular dementia. Why vascular dementia? Because if you're looking at SPECT scans and imaging of the brain or functional MRI looking at blood flow, there's hypoperfusion of the brain. The brain is not getting adequate blood supply and oxygen, and when the cells don't get oxygen, they can't function. Proteins become misfolded, and we call that amyloid plaque and tau tangles. So if we can maintain adequate perfusion of the brain, if we can maintain insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake, then those cells can do their job, they function, and we can maintain normal cognitive function. And it's a vascular metabolic disease, and nitric oxide addresses both aspects of that.
That's the message we need more people to hear, that brain health starts with blood flow, and nitric oxide might just be one of the most important and most overlooked molecules in that equation from what I'm hearing. Now, we know that even the most promising scientific breakthroughs can take years to reach patients. Meanwhile, caregivers and families and advocacy organizations are fighting this disease every single day. And foundations like We Play It Forward are trying to bridge the gap by funding research, supporting patients, and providing that hope. So what role can philanthropy and grassroots awareness type of campaigns play in accelerating progress, Dr. Bryan? And what advice would you give to everyday people who want to help move the needle?
Well, number one, I encourage everyone to get educated and informed on the importance of nitric oxide. There are things that we do that are inhibiting the natural production. Fluoride, for example, antiseptic mouthwash, antacids, all of these rapidly decline the natural production of nitric oxide and accelerate the disease. But look, most basic science and even clinical translational funding comes from the National Institutes of Health, and that's dependent upon the budget from each administration. And so these philanthropic activities, that fund money from private donors, from philanthropists, are key to advancing the science, not just the basic science, but translating that into clinical medicine is absolutely essential.
So well said. I mean, science can't move forward without support. I mean, this is a movement that requires both molecular innovation and moral urgency, if you will. And every listener and viewer can be part of that. It's such a simple thing. Well, we are officially out of time. Dr. Bryan, thank you for lending your voice and your decades of research to this incredibly important conversation. And the possibility of memory restoration is no longer just science fiction. It's slowly science unfolding, if you will. And of course, it was such a pleasure learning from you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
This has been the We Play It Forward segment, where science meets soul and where every memory matters. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. You could head to BryanTherapeutics.com, and you could definitely check him out on the ground. He's very active, and he does respond to your comments at Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. That's Bryan with a Y, and at We Play It Forward Foundation. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the We Play It Forward Foundation. Tee off and give back at their annual golf outing August 21st at the Muttontown Club to fuel hope in the fight against Alzheimer's. Enjoy 18 holes, food and drink, a silent auction, raffles, and more. Head to WePlayItForwardFoundation.org to learn more. Register and donate.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. You're tuned in to the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands and Primal Life Organics. Now, here's something to chew on, literally. Nearly 70% of adults experience jaw clenching or grinding, often unconsciously, and I'm one of them, according to the American Dental Association, that is. But what if I told you that this seemingly minor habit could ripple through your entire musculoskeletal system, impacting your posture, your breath, even your ability to recover from injury or manage chronic pain? Today's headliner is all about tension, breath, and pain, what your jaw might be telling you about the rest of your body. We're going to dive into the real connection between jaw tension, dysfunctional breathing patterns, and systemic physical breakdown. It's all correlated. And no one is more qualified to walk us through this than Dr. Jen Fraboni. She's a PT and she has a doctorate in physical therapy. She's an internationally renowned physical therapist and founder of the Jen.Health platform and app, and co-host of the Optimal Body podcast alongside her brilliant husband. She's been featured in Shape, Self, Men's Fitness, and even landed the cover of Oxygen magazine. Her holistic, evidence-based approach has helped millions. They move smarter, breathe better, and finally, living pain-free. Now, if you've ever clenched your teeth during a stressful Zoom call or woken up with neck stiffness and had no idea why, this one's definitely for you. Welcoming now to the show is the amazing Dr. Jen. Welcome, superstar.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very honored.
So excited. So I'm going to dive right in. Waste no time here. Thank you for being our expert on the microphone series. Now, I'm going to dive into something that's really personal to me. This is affecting me currently. And we're conditioned to think of pain as isolated, right? Like a shoulder issue, a back tweak, a hip, a tight hip. But as you often teach, the body is incredibly interconnected. From a physical therapy perspective, where does the jaw fit into that whole body map, and what makes it such a key player in alignment and tension?
Well, first of all, we have to talk about pain in general. For a lot of us, pain is biopsychosocial, meaning that we have to address the body, but we have to address our psychology, what's going on with our mindset, and then we have to address our environment. So what's going on with us socially that could be impacting pain? And a lot of times we don't like to think about that, but pain is a messenger. So think of it like your stomach is growling. That means you're hungry. Your body feels pain. Your body feels tension. Your body feels tight. It's a messenger, and it's telling you something needs to be addressed or you're neglecting something. And when we start to think about it that way, we stop hopefully fearing pain so much. It doesn't become something that we're scared of, something that we want to avoid, something that we need to disappear right now, right away. But pain is a signal that is so important in the body, highly needed. It would be really detrimental if we didn't have the ability to feel pain. And it's something we get to respond to. So especially when it's coming from the jaw and the neck and that tension that starts to come on, let's start to think, what's happening in my life? How am I sleeping? Am I getting sleep? Am I moving my body? Have I been strength training, mobility? How am I breathing? All of these factors start to play a role in what we're feeling around the jaw. So say that I am dealing with a lot of forward head posture and I'm never getting out of this position. Forward head posture itself is not a bad thing. And we actually have research that shows that your head coming forward isn't necessarily a reason for pain. However, we have to address that if we're always staying here, we're never coming out of this position, we don't know how to find our head over our body, that's going to affect our entire airflow. So now if my head's always forward, my rib cage is down, I'm putting pressure down onto my respiratory diaphragm. Now I might be pooching out my stomach. I'm going to put pressure down into my pelvic floor. So now I'm getting tension at the jaw, tension into my rib cage, and I'm not allowing my respiratory diaphragm to expand. Tension into my pelvic floor. I might be experiencing leaking. I might be experiencing some other symptoms that you have no idea even relate all the way back up to how I'm breathing and where my jaw is.
Wow, you're blowing my mind right now. And in fact, women are disproportionately affected by jaw dysfunction. Sometimes estimates say up to 90% of TMJ sufferers are women, right? So like that should signal something. So what are some of the signs of jaw dysfunction or TMD that may not scream jaw issue at that first glance, like what you're talking about? And how might those symptoms show up elsewhere in the body?
So like I said, we could experience leaking within the body, pelvic floor tension, maybe difficulty going to the restroom, or you notice after you go to the restroom, you're still leaking a little bit. You're like, why didn't my bladder completely relax, right? Well, it's not necessarily the bladder, but it could be the pelvic floor that's holding a lot of tension. So
Right.
how we breathe is affecting everything that we're feeling up into the jaw, even how I'm moving from my upper back, my thoracic spine, how I'm expanding from my rib cage. If I'm not expanding laterally from my rib cage, then I could be affecting the movement of my respiratory diaphragm. And a lot of times when I say, hey, take a deep breath in, what is the first thing everyone does? When I say take a deep breath in, everyone raises their shoulders up into their ears. If you look into the mirror, your neck is going to be tensioning when you do that, right? That is the opposite of what we want to do when we're saying to take a nice, deep, relaxing breath. When I think, and then when I, on the flip side, think, okay, a bear is chasing you. What are you going to do? I'm going to breathe into my chest. My shoulders are going to come up, and I do that exact same breath pattern. So if that is the breath pattern that is getting me in that sympathetic, stressful state, why would I be doing that breath pattern when I'm trying to relax and take a deep, relaxing breath?
God. Oh, it's such a powerful reframing, what you just said right there. So breath work, which that subject you cover so beautifully on your platform, what you just said was a little bit of so much more insight that people could find there. But what's the difference biomechanically between mouth breathing and nasal breathing? And how does that impact our posture, our mobility, or even our energy levels throughout the day?
So when we're nasal breathing, first of all, we're filtering out a lot more of the air. So if we don't want to be breathing in a lot of the air that we're walking around in and pollution, then we want to be shutting our mouth more throughout the day. when we're breathing, it's causing a little bit of restriction in how much oxygen can get in. So it forces the diaphragm to have to work a little bit harder to get that breath, which increases the strength of our diaphragm, which is going to help to improve our intra-abdominal pressure. We're going to start lifting better. We're going to start having better core stability just by breathing from our nose. Not only that, but with that restriction, we're going to increase our nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is amazing because it's going to help to oxygenate all of our body. So if I can increase the oxygen to my brain, increase the oxygen to my muscles, then I'm going to feel better throughout the day as well. I'm going to feel more alert. I'm not going to be reaching for those extra cups of coffee. So just by nasal breathing, we also turn on our parasympathetic system, our rest, relax, digest. And again, most of the people who are living in pain, especially when it comes to chronic pain, you're having chronic recurrent pain, we are stuck in the sympathetic system, and our brain is on overdrive and can no longer filter out the signals that it should be filtering out throughout the day. And that's why our pain response is so elevated and so high. So if we want that to drop down at all, we have to start thinking about how we're breathing, particularly nasal breathing, shutting our mouth more throughout the day. And really, we're breathing from our mouth when we're talking and when we're exercising hard. That's the only times that we should be using our mouth.
Wow. So it's not just how we breathe, it's where we breathe from. And that really challenges how many of us move through our daily lives, especially under stress, right?
Yes.
So let's layer in the stress conversation. So we're all walking around in this low grade fight or flight mode, whether we want to believe it or not,
Right.
especially here in the city. What happens to the physical body, nervous system, muscles, posture when we're constantly clenching our jaw or breathing shallowly under stress?
Mm-hmm. We're constantly telling our body that it needs to be on high alert. And so those pain signals are going to be higher. What we feel throughout the day is going to be higher. That tension is going to be higher, no matter how much you foam roll, no matter how much you massage gun it out or trying to stretch it, you are going to feel a little bit more tense within the body. And the way to help to reduce that is to start to get into that parasympathetic breath. Place your hands on your low rib cage. Give it a little squeeze. Tell me, can you expand from that rib cage laterally? You could do this when you're driving. You could do it before you step into your house. You know you're going to have a crazy busy house. You could do it before a work meeting. Taking 2 to 5 intentional slow breaths from your nose, placing your hands on your rib cage, tongue at the roof of the mouth, and lips closed. This is going to help to reduce everything. Now let's think about the length of the breath, because again, if I'm thinking someone's chasing me, something's really stressful, I'm in this inhaled state. But if I go to get a massage, if I'm relaxed, it's an automatic, it's a long exhale. So the easiest hack as well is not just box breathing or what people might think about, but literally extending your exhale longer than your inhale will help to switch you into that parasympathetic rest relax system rather than being in that stressful state. That's all we have to do. Breathe from your nose, take a long relaxed inhale and then a longer relaxed exhale. And you're going to see how that automatically starts to shift that pain response.
Yeah. You're right. It's wild to think that chronic pain could be the byproduct of unresolved tension when we're not even aware of it. Like, this is your body whispering before it starts to scream kind of thing.
Yes.
And when you look at that chronic sympathetic activation, it's linked to muscle guarding, reduced breath depth, and altered movement. And these are studies that anyone could pull. Harvard Health 2022. I mean, there is a huge correlation there. So, this education is so important. Your work with athletes and moms and desk workers, are the patterns you notice in how lifestyle stress shows up in their bodies? Are there patterns there, and how things like jaw tension or even poor breath habits impact their ability to perform, whatever that performance is, or recover, or even stay pain-free? What patterns are you noticing?
I mean, it all boils down to increased stress. So the moment that a lot of people, especially moms, when I'm dealing with moms, it's like, well, I don't have time for the pain. This pain is coming on. And I'm feeling this, but I have to do this and I have to get to this. And all of a sudden, even just the way that they're talking about their pain and what they need to get back to in life starts to elevate. So imagine what's happening on the inside of the system. So we have to take a moment again. One, looking at posture, and not what posture should be, but what posture should be within your own body. So if I take my hands again on that lateral rib cage and I expand laterally, you will feel, if you do that, you start to automatically sit up, not from forcing your shoulders down and back. I hate that cue. But literally just from expanding that rib cage and getting more mobility along that rib cage, it stacks the body. So now I don't have as much tension along the upper traps, which lead into tension into the jaw. Again, if I can put my tongue at the roof of my mouth, slide that tongue back and relax what's happening in my jaw, then I don't have as much clicking going on and tension built into that TMJ area. So there's so much related to what we could be doing throughout the day in our bodies, starting from how we breathe, where we breathe from, and then listening to our own postural cues more so throughout the day. And that could be just rounding, extending, twisting in your chair. It doesn't even have to be some elaborate routine. But if we're doing little things throughout the day, that's going to make a huge impact. And that's what I see across the board, no matter who you are. We need to be doing a little bit more intentional, mindful movement, intentional, mindful breathing, where we're breathing from. And that's going to make a huge difference in our pain response.
Now, we're almost out of time, but is there one myth or misunderstanding about chronic pain or movement that you wish more people knew, and what would it be?
Adjustments, manipulations, and manual work are all so it's so great to provide some down regulation to the system, because touch is valuable, and I will never disagree with that. However, it's not a fix. We are the fix for our own bodies, not someone else. I can help guide you into what I'm saying could be neglected, but I cannot magically fix you. I'm not a surgeon who's cutting something and changing something. So when I put my hands on you, whether it's an adjustment, whether it is a massage, whether it's a manual technique, it is literally adjusting the nervous system for that moment. But it's not putting a bone back into place. It's not moving back. It's not literally adjusting a joint. It's creating a pocket of change in that joint. It stretches the joint, which causes what's called a cavitation, and it creates that noise that we hear. And that releases a lot of happy hormones into our body. So we feel really good. We think we made change, but it's literally just adjusting the nervous system. So if we continue to remember, there's no one magical fix from someone else, but it's what you do with your own body on a day-to-day basis that's going to make the biggest impact and give you the power back into your own hands to make the change that you need.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying fits into that narrative and ethos of consistency, right? That's why physical therapy sessions are not a single one and done thing. They happen over the course of many months, sometimes, sometimes not even in just many months, but lifestyle changes that you continuously have to maintain and upkeep. So it's a hopeful and empowering note to end on, that pain isn't punishment, it's information. And
Yes.
I've learned so much with the right tools, we can respond because it's a signal. So I love what you just said.
Thank you.
All right, for those ready to move better, breathe deeper, and finally ditch that pain, you could head to Jen.Health and follow her on the gram at DocJenFit for daily tools, demos, and doses of mobility motivation. And of course, you can stream the Optimal Body podcast for even deeper dives with Jen and her husband as they decode the science of movement for everyday life. It's a great, great, great podcast. This has been the Clean Collective segment, brought to you by Society Brands and Primal Life Organics, reminding you to clean up your habits, not just your products. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Primal Life Organics. Still brushing with chemical paste and fluoride-era formulas? Upgrade to Primal Life's tooth powder, powered by enamel-building nano-hydroxyapatite and real organic cinnamon oil to naturally whiten, strengthen, and restore your mouth's mineral balance. No foam, no dyes, just science-backed minerals that really work. Cleaner, whiter, stronger. That's the Primal Life promise. Visit PrimalLifeOrganics.com/Zen for 15% off. Detox your smile today.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Going Deep segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift. Today in the Expert on the Microphone series, we're joined by Dr. Grant Stevens. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon and founder and medical director of Marina Plastic Surgery and Marina Med Spa, and founder of Sun Valley Aesthetics. He has an impressive career that spans decades. He's been consistently recognized as a top plastic surgeon for his renowned expertise and innovation in aesthetic surgery. Now, beyond his clinical practice, he's also a professor of plastic surgery at the University of Southern California, chair and CMIO of Clarity Technologies, and the past president of the Aesthetic Society. He's going to join me right now to chat all about the rising male interest in aesthetic procedures and trending treatments. You definitely want to stick around for this conversation. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hey, thank you very much, Zen. It's great to be on your program. Thank you for having me.
Feels like I've known you for years.
Yes, it does. I know the feeling.
Right? Let's dive right in. So while women still largely outnumber men seeking aesthetic procedures, according to recent stats from the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery, male plastic surgery rates are up a staggering 43% over the last 5 years alone. Now, I know you even created that's something that plays directly into this, Marina Manland. I love this concept. It's a medical man cave catered towards men seeking aesthetic enhancements and adopting the slogan, great slogan, by the way, where a man can feel good about looking great. I think this is a genius way to open up specifically what we're talking about, the more female dominated space, and make it more inviting for men. I mean, Dr. Stevens, what you've done is very, very proprietary. What inspires you to take the special focus and cater more towards the male patients? And why do you think the percentage of men seeking aesthetic treatments is on the rise?
Guys, they don't want to sit on couches. They want to sit on chairs. They love leather. They didn't like the colors I was using or the smell that I was piping in from my Marina Plastic Surgery Associates, my marine office. And so I decided I'm going to build a place that's a cross between a cigar lounge and a sports bar. You know, like wood paneling, leather chairs, televisions and screens everywhere, monitors. I even built the restroom for the men. That I put a urinal in it, which I'd never seen in a doctor's office. I put a monitor above the urinal, so when the guys are doing their business there at the urinal, they can see the monitor. And I piped in the Sports Illustrated bathing suit edition 24/7.
Wow.
And they loved it, and they tell their friends. And guys were coming in like crazy. Larry King came in and did a piece on it, and a bunch of other people on the local news station did. And it was crazy good. And it took off. We have a separate entrance to Marina Manland. And the guys, at first, they used it like crazy to keep their anonymity and so forth. But it's a little inconvenient compared to the front office of the big office building and so forth. They come right in the front now. They cruise right in the front, say hi to the front office, and walk right back to Marina Manland. And it is the stigma is gone.
Well, that's such a refreshing perspective. And it sounds like there was no detail that was overlooked. And I think that the way you've normalized and rebranded the experience for men is quite brilliant. And more so, it's empowering to see that aesthetics is no longer just a woman's world, and the data backs it up, right? So
Yep.
What are the most popular procedures, both surgical and non-surgical, that men are currently seeking, and why do you think they're trending?
They definitely want to lose fat non-surgically. They want to have thicker hair. They prefer not to have surgery to do it. So we have a number of options with our Get Hair MD program. And then finally, skin and all the different things, including home-based treatment, as well as things like everybody knows about lasers, perhaps true facial. Your listeners know about various in-office modalities. But a lot of these guys and gals want to have a home-based approach to optimizing their skincare, besides, soap and water in the shower. And so a lot of them are moving towards something called true facial. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's TRUFACIAL for surgical number 1 blepharoplasty, eyelids, getting rid of this stuff, facelifting. And a lot of guys want their nose fixed if they've broken it and so forth. But eyelids, because they say, hey, Pops, or their fellow workers say, hey, Pops, are you tired? And they don't want to look tired. So it's like
I
the
love
brow
this
up.
narrative.
So a lot of guys, and they can even be 40 and 50 getting that done. I mean, you think of it as guys are 60 or 70, but I'm telling you, I have 40 and 50-year-old guys doing their eyelids.
Now, let's bring CO2 lift into the picture. So while patients can achieve great results through the procedures and treatments you just spoke of, the recovery process is rarely easy, but there are things you can do to make it easier, like CO2 lift. And we know CO2 lift is non-invasive, another buzzword men love, and it's clinically proven, and a medical grade carboxy gel that not only offers monotherapy benefits, but can significantly improve a patient's results and comfort post-procedure. So, Dr. Stevens, I know you've used the product and even interviewed the founder, Lana Kerr, on your podcast, The Technology of Beauty. What is your experience with CO2 Lift? What results have you witnessed?
Sure. Well, the carboxy, as you know, the carboxy therapy increases the oxygen and the oxygenation of skin. It also increases the blood supply and the hydration. In other words, it makes the skin more plump, more hydrated, water. It's like the difference of a raisin and a grape. So a raisin is just a grape that's dehydrated. Well, our skin can become kind of like a raisin. And when we use the carboxy, we actually increase the oxygen and the hydration. There's an immediate effect right then and there, even if you use it at home by yourself or use it like with True Facial I was mentioning. Now, on the other hand, we're doing it on patients before and after procedures. So let's say they're having a skin pen or a hydrofacial or even some lasers and energy-based technologies that we could run through. But we'll treat them before, like once a week, and then after once a week with the carboxy therapy. And
I love hearing
it
this.
accelerates the recovery. The patients feel better. They look better. It shortens the recovery. It's a wonderful addition.
Hearing this from experts like yourself really reinforces the science and clinical integrity behind CO2 Lift. And it's really exciting that it's not just a complementary option. It's often a game-changing one from what I'm hearing. I've heard it being compared to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber by some doctors, post-procedure. So even going beyond this, CO2 Lift has a product that I personally tried for vaginal rejuvenation, right? The CO2 Lift feed, but something many men don't realize is that they can actually use the CO2 Lift Pro on their penis, can even help with erectile dysfunction. So this product really seems that it has many versatile use cases.
Totally. We have biopsies to show the improvement in the lubrication and the hydration of the vaginal mucosa, and also the outside of the vagina, the perineum, the labia, and so forth. The overall appearance is plumper, and I don't mean bigger, but it looks healthier, looks younger, and we have women of all ages asking for it and doing it. Back to men. A number of men have asked me about it. I'm not a specialist in erectile dysfunction by any means. However, men have been taking home the product that's for the penis and reporting to me heightened sex, longer erections, faster erections, and all sorts of things. Again, not my area of expertise. That's usually urologists, but certainly the guys that come to Manland, they hear about it, and they hear about it from their wives and girlfriends.
Wow.
That's where
Wow.
I don't make a big to-do of it.
Now, I'm being mindful of the time, so let's stick on this theme of post-procedure recovery for a moment, because you touched on something. So while you can help patients meet their aesthetic goals through the procedures you offer in office, you touched on something important. Much of healing and the quality of results depends on what happens at home in the days and weeks that follow. So, Dr. Stevens, how do you guide and best set up patients for success post-procedure to optimize both recovery and results?
Well, it depends on the procedure. However, in general, you want to prep people with the obvious things: great diet, a skincare regimen to prep their skin, even if we're doing their eyelids. And we bring them in, we treat them, and we send them home with a True Facial device, as I mentioned, and they do it once a week at home. They use the serums, the active peptides and serums on their face, and prepare themselves. And as I mentioned, the carboxy therapy, if they're willing to do it, it does lead to better skin quality before the procedure, and then a faster recovery thereafter.
That's such an important reminder. What happens outside the treatment room matters just as much, and empowering patients with the right recovery tools truly does define their long-term satisfaction and results. I've interviewed so many experts, and this is the common theme. Now, you're also an educator, and I want to talk about this because there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, right? So you're an educator serving as a clinical professor of plastic surgery at the University of Southern California, and you lecture at numerous international and national and regional meetings, and you've authored more than 60 articles and chapters on aesthetic plastic surgery. This is quite impressive, my friend. Not to mention That's not enough. Not to mention, you are the host of the Technology of Beauty podcast, which it takes a lot to now have a podcast on top of everything else you're doing. So whether you're interviewing doctors, founders, inventors, and scientists who are shaping the future of aesthetics, you're clearly on that, on the beat of it all,
That's
right?
right.
At the what we call your ear is to the streets, if you will. So why do you believe education is so crucial in the field of plastic surgery for both students and practicing health professionals, especially in this area of such rapid advancement? I mean, things are changing overnight.
Well, thank you very much. You're very kind. I'm going to have to be sure to have my mother listen to this. Having said that, I believe strongly, and many of you have heard this, it's not original, that I am certainly no better than the giants upon whose shoulders I stand. And when I think of my mentors and my educators that got me to where I'm at, and I went into practice, I know I am who I am as a result of their generosity and their teaching me and challenging me. I was fortunate enough to start the aesthetic fellowship program at SC 28 years ago. I was the chairman and also founder. And I have to tell you, when I go through my daily activities and all, my teaching of my fellows, and thus then the residents and students, but the fellows especially, it's the most worthwhile, valuable thing I do professionally. I've had the opportunity to educate over 41 fellows just in my fellowship, and then hundreds. I was also the visiting professor for the United States for the Aesthetic Society, also a visiting professor for the International Society. I know that sounds braggadocious. I don't mean it that. What I'm saying, I flew all around the world, and I flew all around the country, and I had a chance to meet residents and fellows and other docs. And before I became president, I was also involved in a lot of education and so forth, and I continue doing it. And I have to tell you, I love it. I don't get paid a penny to do it. I do it because of the love of it. And it reminds me of my chairman, Dr. Weeks, who taught me so much. And it gives me a great sense of satisfaction. And you mentioned something else, and that is all of this crazy disinformation and misinformation. And I can't tell you how many times I have patients quoting Dr. Google to me, which I know Dr. Google is right some of the times, but I'm telling you, I've spent 35 years studying and performing surgery and non-surgicals and reading and lecturing. And when people spend 45 minutes or a couple days on their computers and they go to Dr. Google and then they start quoting stuff to me, especially when it's blatantly wrong, it blows my mind. And I'm nice about it. I just say, here's the deal. You're spending this time with me and all this money and whatnot. You have a choice to make. You can either listen to me or listen to Dr. Google, and I respect it's your choice. And if you want to listen to Dr. Google, that is your choice. But I'm not going to debate Dr. Google. I will not do that.
Yeah.
And I tell them, listen, we're friends, whatever, no hard feelings, but please don't make me debate Dr. Google.
I love this, Dr. Google. Exactly. And when education is prioritized the right way, not Chat GPT and Dr. Google, patients ultimately win, right? And
Absolutely.
it keeps the industry, it keeps the industry moving forward safely and ethically. I say ethically because that's very important in our conversations, and ensures that innovation doesn't outpace responsibility, because that's also happening, right? So your leadership is that space, your leadership in this space is truly invaluable. We need more of you. And that brings us at the end of our date. We finally have wrapped up this segment. I can't believe it. It's taken us like 6 hours.
Don't believe it. It hasn't taken 6 hours. It's been wonderful. I just wish it could go on for another hour. There's so many fun things.
Well, I'll join your
Please
podcast.
come out to Manhattan Beach, California, and watch the Technology of Beauty, where I have the opportunity to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business.
That was our Going Deep segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift, and that was the incredible Dr. Grant Stevens. He's a renowned board-certified plastic surgeon and founder and medical director of Marina Plastic Surgery. You can definitely check them out directly on their website at marinaplasticsurgery.com. And to learn more about his practice, you could follow him on the gram at Dr. Grant Stevens. You can check out his podcast, The Technology of Beauty. It's on YouTube and on Instagram at The Technology of Beauty. And do check out his latest innovation at sunvalleyaesthetics.com. You can head directly to their website, sunvalleyaesthetics.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com. Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In the Express Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Cespera, in our health tip of the week, today we're chatting about the connection between heat and hyperpigmentation. Did you know that heat, not just sun exposure, can worsen dark spots like melasma? So if you've been staying out of the sun, that may not be enough. Everyday activities like sitting in a car, cooking near heat sources, or even hot yoga can actually contribute to worsening dark spots. So, to help minimize these heat-induced flare-ups, keep your environment cool when possible. Avoid steam-heavy settings and wear a broad-spectrum SPF every single day, even indoors. That was our health tip of the week brought to you by Cespera. Be sure to check them out online at cespera.com and on the gram at Cespera. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Cespera. If skin discoloration is making it hard to find your Zen, Cespera can help. Stubborn pigmentation, dark spots, and uneven skin tone concerns go beyond the surface, affecting both confidence and self-expression. In a sea of skincare choices, Cespera stands apart. Backed by science and trusted by dermatologists worldwide, Cespera is powered by the advanced cysteamine isobonic amide complex, delivering clinically proven results and effectively targeting mild to persistent discoloration while restoring the skin's natural glow. Unlike harsh treatments, Cespera is formulated for all skin types, including sensitive areas, ensuring visible improvements without irritation. Whether pigmentation is a new concern or a long-standing struggle, Cespera works in harmony with the skin to bring balance, clarity, and renewed confidence. Cespera is science-driven skincare for confidence that shines. Find your skin zen and restore your glow with Cespera today by heading to Cespera.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. What if I told you the future of human potential is already here, and her name is Tilly Lockey? In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, we're spotlighting an extraordinary young woman who isn't just navigating the world of disability, she's actually redefining it. According to the World Health Organization, over 1.3 billion people globally live with some form of disability, representing 16% of the world's population. But what if we stopped seeing disability as a limitation and started seeing it as a launchpad for innovation? Tilly Lockey lost both of her hands to meningitis as a baby, but that was only the beginning of her story. Since the age of 9, she's been working with Open Bionics to co-create state-of-the-art bionic arms, pioneering a world where tech and humanity aren't at odds, but partners. Her work is redefining public perception around prosthetics, beauty, and what it means to be abled. Tilly is a bionic trailblazer, a motivational speaker, a creative technologist, and a fierce voice for inclusion. She's been featured on global platforms from BBC to Wired and continues to use her platform to empower others, especially the next generation of disabled youth. And today, this bionic beauty is going to join me to talk all about that journey, the tech that's shaped her and changing disability forever, and why inclusion isn't just a buzzword, it's a human right. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Tilly, you are a force to be reckoned with. You are a trailblazer, and I'm so honored to be chatting with you today. So I want to cover from survival to superhuman, which is essentially what you've done. And you've said before that you don't just want to survive, you want to thrive. And I love this mantra. So, from your earliest experiences with meningitis to being fitted for your first bionic arm, your story is nothing short of phenomenal. Can you take us back to that moment you first realized you had no hands? And what was that adjustment like, both emotionally and physically?
Yeah, so it's been a journey to say the least, and it starts like right at the beginning because when I was born, I had like all four limbs. I was completely happy, healthy baby, like nothing seemed wrong at all. And it wasn't until I was 15 months old that I ended up contracting a terrible disease called meningococcal septicemia strain B in its full name. I was rushed to the hospital immediately. It was like no chance of survival, literally 0% is what my family were given. Like they were practically told to say their goodbyes. But obviously, I'm here today, and my little tiny body was somehow able to fight it. It was after 1 week in intensive care, 3 weeks in recovery, a second G infection, which I later contracted, and 10 blood transfusions that I had to have. But somehow I managed to pull through, I survived, and I'm here today. But the septicemia, that's blood poisoning, and you could see like it well and truly just devastated my hands. They were all curled over and black and like scabbed, and they were just truly dead. And there was even a point when I had the hands still attached where I was adapting to them being dead and like them, like the inevitable future of them not being there. Like I had my hands still attached and I was starting to pick things up with my wrists. So one thing that's been a constant in my life is like adaptation. Even when the hands are still attached, it's like I'm a tiny baby little girl and I realize they're no good for me, you know? So yeah, it's been from the time I was 1 year old, I lost my hands and that changed everything.
So let's talk about design. You've co-created bionic arms with Open Bionics that are not only functional, but look at you, fashionable. I mean, we're talking about superhero grade limbs inspired by Iron Man and Star Wars. It doesn't get better than this. So why was it important for you to be part of the design process? And how does the look and feel of your bionic arms impact the way you move through the world?
It was so important. It all came about because the first time we were exploring like prosthetics and things like that, and we were given this device. First of all, it was given to us in a brown paper bag as if something to be like really discreet about, and the whole reception was kind of weird. But then also pulled out this like device, and it was like not a device at all. We were like, how does it work? Like, how do I make it move? And they were like, oh no, it doesn't do anything. You just like stick it on the end of your arm to make it look more normal, get less stares in public. So it really was like my entire childhood, like being drilled into me that prosthetics was something that were like realistic and something that like tried to blend and like replace what you lost in the way as close to it as possible. But I don't feel like that had all the best benefits to me growing up. I feel like it definitely had an impact on me. You know, you're in your prime years where your brain's developing and all you're being told is like to mask and hide this difference. So that sort of triggered like this whole journey of making prosthetics useful for a start, but also trying to get away from the whole idea that this is something we need to hide. Like, why was that the standard? We talk about physical benefits, but also the mental benefits of like wearing these bionic arms and what they've given me in my life has been like so amazing. And I just realized it's not something that should be left behind, and we should
You're right.
experiment.
Celebrate. We should celebrate this. And how old are you right now?
I'm 19 right now.
You're 19. So this has truly shaped you in the most profound way. And for those of you listening and haven't tuned in to watch yet, you are hearing her hands move with a mechanism every time she does move them. So there is a sound that the prosthetic bionic limbs do make, correct?
Yes, there is. And I can keep it down, but I also think it sounds kind of cool.
So in your opinion, what does the future of bionics look like? And how close are we to a world where every child who needs a bionic limb can actually access one?
The rate at which technology is advancing and the people that it's helping is just going up and up and up, which is the best thing in the world. And that is my vision for the future. Like, I think the tech is going to get better and better inevitably. Like, it's going to get so good to the point where it's going to be sci-fi vibes, you know what I mean? But there is no point of all this advancement and amazing stuff in the tech world if people don't have access to it. So like I talk a lot about how the accessibility is so important, like bridging the gap, between, just the people who can afford it and people who can't. Like it shouldn't be like that. If you want it and you would benefit from it, you should have it. Like my motto is that having 4 limbs is a human right. Like that's something I absolutely stand by. So yeah, my vision for the future is that it gets better and better, but also while it's getting better and better, we're working on the accessibility just as much, and like everybody can benefit from it. And I don't know how far off that is, but all we can do in the moment is look at it as an absolute priority, and in everything I do, that's at the forefront.
You are so well spoken, my dear. And you're right. Accessibility is absolutely everything. You can't spark change if only a few can afford to experience it, right? And I really hope more companies follow Open Bionics' lead in democratizing this kind of life-changing technology, because it's truly needed. So, which brings me to confidence and your identity, because you are very confident, but many people struggle with confidence, especially during their teenage years. And yet here you are, rocking red carpets, giving keynote talks, and redefining what beauty and confidence can look like with Bionics. So was there a specific moment you stopped feeling, say, different and started owning your power?
Well, I read something recently and I really resonate with that. It's just that you should find purpose in your pain. Like, because my life is like, I love my life. Like, I'm thriving. Like, genuinely, it's great at the minute. And like, but it hasn't always been that way. Do you know what I mean? I've had my own ups and downs. Like, my teenage years were nothing short of like, I don't know, like, smooth sailing. Like, everyone goes through that. I think when I was like 13 years old, that's when it kind of like was the worst. Like, I was rolling sleeves down. I just couldn't be bothered with like all the stairs. And like, it is just a constant thing of like, you look different, you feel different, you just don't you don't feel like you fit in. And that was a big thing I felt. And it wasn't even necessarily that I was rolling the sleeves down because I was ashamed and hated my difference personally, but it was more like I just couldn't live my life. Do you know what I mean? It was just something so distinctly different about me that it was more like other people couldn't ignore it. So some days when I just wanted to be treated like everybody else, that's when I'd roll the sleeves down. But at the same time, you shouldn't have to do that. Do you know what I mean? And I see little kids now in the same position, and I'm like, you think like this is awful now, but I promise you will get over it. I genuinely feel like it was one day where I literally just woke up and I was like, I just felt like I'd wasted so many summers, particularly. I think it was like summertime, and I was like, or anticipating summer, and I was like, I've wasted so much time just like sweating away in the summer, trying to wear as many layers as possible, trying to hide this away when it shouldn't have to be like that. How many summers am I going to waste before I like get the memo? Do you know what I mean?
There was a 2023 report from the Center for Talent Innovation, and it showed that 75% of disabled individuals hide, to your point, their disability at work or school out of fear of being treated differently, which tells us inclusion still has a long way to go. What do you wish more people understood about disability and what real inclusion actually looks like?
I think real inclusion is the lack of assumption. I think that's the biggest thing like people with disabilities deal with, and why they want to hide the difference. Sometimes it's not a personal issue where like they just hate it about them. Like you say, like they're doing it at work and that. And I can tell you right now, it's because they don't want their abilities to be judged by the disability that they present. Do you know what I mean? Because you would look at somebody with no hands and be like, well, they can't play the piano. Like, there was a long list of things where somebody came into my house and told my family when I was a baby, they were like, well, she's not going to do this, she's not going to do that. Piano was on that list. And my parents were like, well, who are you to tell us what our child can and can't do? Like, we're going to find a decrepit piano on eBay, literally falling apart. We're going to stick it in the kitchen. And if she wants to try it, regardless if she has no hands, she can try it. Do you know what I mean? And it got to the age of like when I was like 7, started to tinker with it, because in my head I didn't think, oh, I've got no hands, I can't do it. I just thought, there's a piano, do you know what I mean? So let me try. And yeah, like now I play the piano with a prosthetic, which is literally made out of a toilet roll tube and a garden rake. Like, it's the assumptions that people have when they see the disability which makes people want to hide it, because you're like, it's basically just like what you're capable of isn't defined by that disability. There's there's like ways to adapt, and like ways around it that people don't initially see because all they see is the disability at first. Like that is a very real thing. So yeah, I just feel like to be more inclusive, people should just not draw so many conclusions so quick. Like give the person the opportunity to actually like show what they can do. I think that would go like a really, really long way.
Yeah. And allyship isn't just about words, it's about architecture, right? Systems, spaces, products, they all have to be designed with everyone in mind. So I think what you're saying is at this point right now, the inclusion really does start when we as a society want to take those assumptions away. And I love that you framed it like that. You're so mature. You're so mature. There's no way you're 19. You're an old soul. So let's talk about tech. So we live in a world obsessed with filters, perfection, and these curated identities. But your bionics, your real visible difference has become your superpower, right? So what would you say to a young person who feels like their difference is a disadvantage?
Same as before, sort of like turn your pain into purpose. Like my life has not been easy, but the most rewarding things that I've done has been like turning that whole narrative around. Like I would have loved to prance around with Iron Man glitter covered bionic arms, but I didn't have the confidence to do that. And so that's been the journey. Like my entire journey has been about making prosthetics beautiful. Like this is my difference, but it's also not just about accepting that now. It's not even about embracing it, but accentuating it in a really beautiful light. Like because that is what is different about you, and who are you to hide it away, and who are they to tell you to, you know?
Yeah. And you're proof that difference isn't something to hide, it's something to highlight. And I love that where this interview is headed. Now, before we sign off, I know that sustainability and a cleaner, kinder future matter to you. So in this segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, this beverage company is all about clean living with heart, hydrating the body and the soul without the junk. Much like the Bionic space, they believe in minimizing harmful impact while maximizing human benefit. So how do you see the connection between sustainable innovation and inclusive innovation? And how can we keep building tech that uplifts everyone without leaving anyone or the planet behind?
Well, that's like the big conversation at the minute, isn't it? Because we're hearing all about AI and how that's like really not doing great things for the planet. I think we do really get carried away in like one aspect and just full steam ahead, you know what I mean? So it is really important to take into consideration, all the other effects, and like we need this earth, you know what I mean? So we definitely do need to look after it. And I hope that in the future there's just more eyes on that, to be honest. Like I know there's a lot of people who defend the environment, but I also feel like it should be like big CEOs' mission as well as what they do, because otherwise we're just like gonna just keep hurting the planet and then we won't even have somewhere to be. So yeah, it's really important, and I'd like to see the future of like more sustainable fashion. Like I'm really into that because I'm super into the design and things like that. Like I think sustainable fashion would be really, really great. More materials, hopefully, with the way tech develops. Like we'll be able to melt down like 3D printed plastic that you can melt down and recycle. Ways like that, like there are probably sustainable ways. People don't really look into them because they're just so full steam ahead and like the what's quickest way. But I think with the way the world is going, I think we are more aware of that now. And if we all like chip in and, maybe if there were regulations around it, that would be so good. Like this is what you're endorsing, this is what you're getting involved in, and this is the impact it has. I feel like we should all take that into consideration.
Indeed. What a full circle moment. When whether it's a can of clean hydration or a world-changing bionic arm, the future has to be inclusive, accessible, and kind to our planet, to your point, and you're helping pave that way, Tilly. Well, we are officially at the end of our date, my friend. I'm going to let you get back to your campground, but thank you for being here today and for showing us that the future isn't just bright, it's bionic. I mean, you're not just giving people a hand, you're giving them hope.
Thank you. No, I know I try my best, and like I just hope the next generation sees it like the beautiful thing it is. Like they don't need to hide it, but it can actually be, something that enhances who they are and their personality. That's my vision.
To keep up with Tilly and her world-changing work, you can follow her directly on the gram at tilly.locky across most platforms. You can check her out on TikTok at tillylocky. And of course, this has been the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. We are at the end of our date. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. Also, remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. We upload to YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on Your Home TV digital streaming worldwide platform. You could head directly to our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make the show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.